Okay, good morning, guys. When we left off together last time, we were right at the end of chapter 10. So that's where we'll pick up here in 1 Samuel, right at the end of chapter 10. And Samuel had called all the people together at Mizpah. And so at Mizpah, he reminds them of, of them rejecting God. Of course, right on the hills of retelling the account of Egypt and coming out of Egypt. And we've seen that a lot, and we'll continue to see that throughout the Old Testament. Just this reminder to the Israelites of them coming out of Egypt, and there's really a parallel because what we see it with the reminder of Egypt. I mean, this was a grand event, so. May we not lose, the astonishment of really what that represented, for for such a mass number of people to come out under Egyptian rule, through the plagues and through Moses as a representative of God, interacting with Pharaoh, for them to successfully make it out of the Egyptian empire and out of that slavery, crossing, the crossing of the Red Sea, everything that Egypt was. I mean, this was a grand, massive event. And so there's always that constant reminder. And from a perspective, it's a constant reminder of hey guys, remember, be astonished, be amazed at the work that has taken place. Don't just take this for granted. And just like there's that in the Old Testament, when we get into the New Testament, we have that now in Jesus Christ and with His resurrection, right? So just like here in the Old Testament, it's Egypt and coming out from that slavery in the Red Sea. In the New Testament, there's the work of Christ, there's the miracle of Christ, and then of course His resurrection from the dead. And that still also being the what we can reflect on, what we can meditate on, and be astonished by, and even more so be astonished by the fact that we can have a relationship with our Creator. Um, so here they are, and he's just reminding them of hey, we had this structure going on, of judges, of God ruling over His people, yet you still demanded to have a king set over you. And then right at the end of chapter 10, what he does is he calls out by clans, or excuse me, by tribes of Israel to come near, and then the tribe of Benjamin's chosen, and then there's families chosen within sight of that, and then it ends on Kish, which was the father of Saul, and then Saul. But when they sought him, and Saul the son of Kish was chosen. But it says, verse 22, has the man come here yet? Because when they were searching for him, they couldn't find him. So they ran and brought him from there. When he stood among the people, he was taller than any of the people from his shoulders upward. And Samuel said to all the people, "Do you see him whom the Lord has chosen, that there is no one like him among all the people?" So all the people shouted and said, "Long live the king!" Then Samuel explained to the people the behavior of royalty, and wrote it in a book and laid it up before the Lord. And Samuel sent all the people away, every man to his house. And Saul also went home to Gibeah, and valiant men went with him, whose hearts God had touched. But some rebels said, "How can this man save us?" So they despised him and brought him no presents. But he held his peace. So wisely, he holds his peace in terms of those who aren't supportive of him. And what's interesting in verse 26, the valiant men who are going with him, it says, whose hearts God had touched. So there's an appointment there of that I can't completely speak to, but just something I wanted to point out. And just in terms of commentary, I was just it was interesting to me to see that that Saul couldn't be found. I mean, here's his day of days of chosen king, the first king of Israel, and he's being appointed here right in front of all, and they can't find him. And Matthew Henry gave four possible reasons on this, and so just something to think about. One, maybe Saul couldn't be found because he was conscious to himself of unfitness for so great a trust. Number two, because it would expose him to the envy of his neighbors that were ill affected towards him. already right there at the end, we see, or we saw that there were some, who thought, hey, who is this guy? Number 3, because he understood by what Samuel had said that the people sinned in asking a king, and it was in anger that God granted their request. And number 4, because the affairs of Israel were at this time in a bad posture. The Philistines were strong, the Ammonites threatening, and he must be bold indeed that will set sail in a storm. So maybe Saul really recognized the context of which he was becoming king. This context of there's all this pressure. Now he's going to have to step up as king and fulfill on that. Also, that just the context of what Samuel's reminding them of hey, you guys want a king. God sees this as a rejection, but hey, he's going to, through grace, give you that anyway. So chapter 11, Saul, right at the beginning, sees action with the Ammonites. In chapter 11, it says, Then Nahash the Ammonite came up and encamped against Jabesh Gilead. And all the men of Jabesh said to Nahash, Make a covenant with us, and we will serve you. So Jabesh Gilead, so geographically that puts us on the east side of the Jordan, so in the land of Gad and the Reubenites. And so Nahash is this Ammonite, I guess, general, or I'm not sure, who he is. But basically, the men of Jabesh Gilead are saying, hey, if you make it, they didn't want to fight, so if you make a covenant with us, we'll serve you. And verse 2, And Nahash the Ammonite answered them, On this condition I will make a covenant with you, that I may put out all your right eyes and bring reproach on all Israel. Then the elders of Jabesh said to him, Hold off for 7 days, that we may send messengers to all the territory of Israel. And then if there is no one to save us, we will come out to you. And he grants this, which is kind of odd. They're basically saying, hey, you know what? Let us send out messengers. Give us 7 days. And he did. He gave them these 7 days. And who knows? Maybe he wasn't completely prepared for battle. Not sure. But nonetheless, the messengers do go out, and they come to Gibeah of Saul, told the news in the hearing of the people. And it says, verse 5, Now there was Saul coming behind the herd from the field, and Saul said, What troubles the people that they weep? And they told him the words of the men of Jabesh. And the Spirit of God came upon Saul when he heard this news, and his anger was greatly aroused. So he took a yoke of oxen and cut them in pieces and sent them throughout all the territory of Israel by the hands of messengers, saying, Whoever does not go out with Saul and Samuel to battle, so it shall be done to his oxen. This is really something that a judge would do. I mean, when you think of kings, kings usually have standing armies. And inside of these armies, these conscripts, they don't have a choice. It's, hey, you're going to go here, you're going to do this. But with this confederation of tribes, and then the history even coming up to this kingship, Saul's action again is more of what a judge would do, of just saying, hey, by sending out this yoke, come gather. So it's almost a request. But inside of this request, if you don't do it, this is what's going to happen. Whoever does not go up with Saul and Samuel in battle, so it shall be done to his oxen, using this example of the yoke being cut into pieces. And it says this is verse 7. Yeah, at the end of verse 7, And the fear of the Lord fell on the people, and they came out with one consent. So Saul's action took effect, and they ultimately gathers together 330,000 men total to go up against this Nahash the Ammonite, and they defeat him quite substantially. And it happened, verse 11. Or actually, so it was on the next day. This is verse 11. So it was on the next day that Saul put the people in 3 companies, this 330,000. And they came into the midst of the camp in the morning watch and killed Ammonites until the heat of the day. And it happened that those who survived were scattered, so that no 2 of them were left together. Then the people said to Samuel, Who is he who said, Shall Saul reign over us? Bring the men that we may put them to death. Remember in verse 10, that group of people who weren't supportive of Saul. And now, right here on the on the, at the end of this being victorious in battle. Everyone's hyped up and saying, "Hey, who is it that said that Saul shall not reign over, or shall Saul reign over us? Bring them in that we may put them to death." And then Saul wisely responds, verse 13, "Not a man shall be put to death this day, for today the Lord has accomplished salvation in Israel." Then Samuel said to the people, "Come, let us go to Gilgal and renew the kingdom there." So all the people went to Gilgal, and there they made Saul king before the Lord in Gilgal. There they made sacrifices of peace offerings before the Lord, and there Saul and all the men of Israel rejoiced greatly. In reflecting on Gilgal here and seeing what's taking place, if we look back to Joshua chapter 5, verse 9, there it says, "Then the Lord said to Joshua, This day I have rolled away the reproach of Egypt from you. Therefore the name of the place is called Gilgal to this day." And Gilgal was that literally the word means a rolling away. This scene that took place in Joshua in Gilgal. Joshua had gathered. They were in the land of Canaan. So here they had made it. God rolls away the reproach of Egypt. So it's just a segment of history that's now complete. The Lord had been taking care of them during their 40 years in the wilderness with manna. And here in this moment, in Gilgal, all the people had consecrated themselves through circumcision to the Lord and dedicated themselves. And also in this moment, it was this true foundation here that had taken place. The manna had ceased. The manna had ceased as well. So now, fast forwarding this next great event in the history of Israel in Gilgal, where Saul now is made king before the Lord in Gilgal. So, chapter 12, Samuel's address at Saul's coronation. Chapter 12, is this taking stock again. Samuel's taking stock again with the people of Israel. We're going to see a reminder again of everything that the Lord had done. And before doing so, verses 1 through 5, what Samuel's doing is he's saying to them, well, let me just read a few verses here. "Now Samuel said to all Israel, Indeed, I have heeded your voice and all that you said to me, and have made a king over you. And now here is the king walking before you. And I am old and gray-headed, and look, my sons are with you. I have walked before you from my childhood to this day. Here I am. Witness against me before the Lord and before his anointed. Whose ox have I taken, or whose donkey have I taken, or whom have I cheated? Whom have I oppressed, or from whose hand have I received any bribe with which to blind my eyes? I will restore it to you." And they said, "You have not cheated us or oppressed us, nor have you taken anything from any man's hand." Then he said to them, "The Lord is witness against you, and is anointed as witness this day, that you have not found anything in my hand." So really, what Samuel's doing is he's putting himself in this place of really giving the people the chance to hold witness against him, and illustrating his righteousness. Hey, I've done. I've even fulfilled your requests. I've intercessed for you guys, with God. And they answer, "He is witness." So allowing God to be the witness between them and Samuel that day. And then he goes on in verse 6, it is the Lord who raised up Moses, Aaron, brought you out of Egypt. Verse 7, "Now stand still that I may reason with you before the Lord concerning all the righteous acts of the Lord which he did to you and your fathers." And then he talks of Jacob again, Moses and Aaron. What's going on in Sisera, the commander of the army of Hazor. The Philistines, the king of Moab. And then their response, during this time period. "Oh, we've sinned, we've forsaken the Lord and served the Baals and Ashtoreths. But now deliver us." And so, pointing to this cycle of idolatry and then deliverance, idolatry and deliverance. What's going on with the Ammonites, and now even to the point, Samuel makes it to the point here in verse 12, where they know, but a king shall reign over us when the Lord your God was king. And we'll pick up there together next time. God bless you guys, and have a great day.